Կան մարդիկ, որ ժամանակին կորցրել են եւ կան մարդիկ, որոնք ժամանակ
Ինձ այս չի տեղ ես դրել, մտածում ես, որ ոչ մի բան չեմ հասկանում։ Հիմա ինձ ասա ինչ
գտնես թե հանուն ինչի արժի ապրել, իսկ դա շատ է։
Աղբորս միտումնավոր ես կյանքից զրկել։
Հասկանում, սրա հետ ինչ ընդհանուր թեմա պետքա դու ունենաս։
Պապ աղաչում եմ, թողեք մենակ մնամ, էլ ինչի եք անընդհատ գնում գալիս։
Պարտադիր չի, չէ, ինչ որ խնդիր ունենաս, ինչ որ բանի միջով անցած լինես, որ կարողանաս խոսես այդ մասը։
Եկեք խնայեք մեր ժամանակը։ Գիշերվանից իմ մոտ բան չի փոխվել։
Այդ մարդիկ հասկանում են, բայց հետազոտություններ են իրականացնում։
Ina already knows exactly who tried to kill her son. She has known since the moment that phone rang in her hand. And she is choosing, right now, in this very episode, to protect that secret instead of handing her own child the truth. Before we go any further, tell me where you're watching this from tonight. Drop your city down in the comments. I read every single one of them myself, and I love seeing just how far this story has traveled, so don't be shy tonight. Let's talk about what that phone call actually means, because this is not some side detail. This is the center of everything happening in this family right now. The man on the other end of that call is someone who was present the night Raphael died, someone who has stayed buried in silence for 15 years for the exact same reason Ina has, because the truth he's carrying is powerful enough to destroy this entire family from the inside if it ever gets spoken out loud. And now, with Hunan lying in a hospital bed after surviving an assassination attempt, that silence is no longer sustainable. Someone tried to kill the head of this family, and the person who could name the culprit in a single sentence is the one person everyone in this house trusts the most, his own mother. Think about what that says about Ina. This entire story, you've watched her fold her hands and pray while everyone around her screams, threatens, collapses. You've watched her stay composed through Grisho's accident, through Manan's miscarriage, through Ina's confrontation, through every single crisis this family has thrown at her. Now ask yourself honestly, does a woman stay that calm through 15 years of tragedy because she's simply spiritually strong? Or because she already understands the shape of every disaster before it happens, because she's been carrying the blueprint the entire time? In the coming episode, expect that question to finally get answered, and the answer is not going to be comfortable for anyone watching. Now let's rebuild the wider picture, because everything converging on Ina right now traces back through every major threat this story has been building for weeks. Grisho is lying in that German hospital paralyzed from the waist down, and instead of leaning on his wife for comfort, he accused her outright of lying about losing their baby, of deliberately ending the pregnancy just to punish him. Manan, already destroyed by a loss she never asked for, is now being forced to defend her own grief against a man who should have been holding her together. In the next episode, expect this accusation to escalate rather than fade. Expect Grisho to demand some form of proof, maybe pulling doctors into it, maybe even pulling his own mother into validating his paranoid suspicion, treating his wife's pain like a crime scene instead of a tragedy. Manan already told Leo directly that she is done letting anyone with the Makun's name control her life. Watch closely, because this next accusation might be the exact moment she finally acts on that promise instead of just saying it. Back home, Hunan is conscious again after the attempt on his life, and if his final words in the last episode told you anything, it's that mercy is not coming for whoever orchestrated that attack. Hunan does not make idle threats, and now that he's awake, now that he knows this wasn't an accident, this was a targeted attempt to end him, expect him to move with terrifying efficiency. Every resource,
every connection, every ounce of fear he spent decades building is about to get pointed at one target, finding the person responsible. And Ina already made her own vow, standing in that hospital room, that everyone connected to what happened to her son will answer for it. Two of the most dangerous people in this story are now hunting the exact same answer, and whoever orchestrated that attack has very few places left to disappear to. This is where Erna becomes impossible to ignore. Her confrontation with Ina was never just grief-talking. It was closer to a confession dressed up as an accusation. She stood there and promised that everyone connected to Ina, everyone connected to Hunan, is going to pay for what happened to her father, blamed Hunan directly for his death, and then, almost like a slip she didn't mean to make, referenced her uncle in a way that connected him directly to Hunan's current condition. She denied pulling the trigger herself, but at this point, denial from Erna carries the weight of a woman who knows exactly how guilty she looks and doesn't care. In the coming episode, expect that uncle's identity to surface in a way that shakes this family to its foundation. Because the twist worth preparing yourself for is this: he may not be some outsider circling from a distance. Given how deeply this story has already proven that the people closest to Hunan are capable of hiding devastating secrets for years, don't be shocked if Erna's uncle turns out to be someone who has been sitting at this family's own table the entire time. Someone whose loyalty to Hunan has always felt just a little too convenient to be completely real. Now let's talk about Avo, because his storyline has stopped being embarrassing and started being genuinely dangerous. This is a man who kissed Hunan's unconscious forehead while praying out loud for God to make sure he never wakes up, then walked out of that room minutes later, acting completely normal at the family dinner table like nothing happened. That kind of duplicity does not survive long in a house this suspicious of everyone. In the next episode, expect someone, most likely Vova, who already dragged him physically out of that hospital room once, to catch him at precisely the wrong moment, saying precisely the wrong thing. And this time, it might not stop at another warning. Avo has already proven with Olga that threats don't change his behavior, and combine that pattern with his open hostility toward Hunan surviving at all, and you have a man quickly becoming the most obvious threat hiding in plain sight inside this family's own home. Speaking of threats hiding in plain sight, remember Aram's frantic, secretive push to get Vova out of the country to Russia with zero explanation given? That threat never actually resolved, and it's about to become significantly more dangerous now that Hunan is conscious and actively hunting down whoever orchestrated the attack against him. If Hunan's people start connecting the same dots Ina already has, Vova remaining anywhere near this investigation becomes a serious liability, not just for himself, but for Aram, who clearly knows far more than he's ever admitted to anyone. Watch how Aram reacts the moment word reaches him that Hunan is fully conscious and already making threats. Because a man that nervous does not stay composed once the person he fears most wakes back up and starts asking questions. David and Nere's storyline, which has felt like the only genuine warmth left in this entire family, is heading straight into its first real test. Nere already voiced her fear, half joking and half completely serious, about whether their business and their future together are actually safe with everything collapsing around David's family right now. David reassured her with affection, told her everything is going to work out. But in the coming episode, expect that promise to be tested harder than either of them expected. With Hunan hospitalized, with the family's entire foundation shaken, with money and attention being pulled toward Grisho's treatment abroad and Hunan's recovery at home, David's small business dream is going to start competing for resources it may not actually get. And Nere has every right to start asking whether David can genuinely keep the promises he's making her. And here's a small detail worth watching closely. The strange young man who wandered into David and Nere's shop offering to model clothes, asking a few too many friendly questions, watching them a little too carefully. In a story this deliberate about planting details that detonate later, a random customer rarely stays random. In the coming episode, expect that visitor to resurface somewhere nobody in that shop expects. Whether he's connected to someone circling this family gathering information, or whether he's the first sign that David's business, however innocent, has become visible enough to attract attention this family absolutely cannot afford right now. Now back to Ina, because everything eventually funnels back to her in this episode. Her prayer at the start, asking God to protect the people she loves and give her the strength to endure whatever pain is still coming, was never just a mother coping with her son's hospitalization. Think about everything she has witnessed and chosen not to say. Her reaction during Erna's confrontation, the deliberate, calm way she's moved through every single crisis this family has endured without ever once losing composure. In the coming episode, that composure is finally going to be tested past its limit. Because the man on the phone is not asking her to keep a secret anymore. He's telling her the secret is about to come out, whether she chooses to speak first or not. Let's return to Grisho for a moment, because his condition has stopped being purely medical and started becoming deeply psychological. This is a man who built his entire identity around control, around being wanted, around walking into any room and owning it completely. Now he's lying in a bed, unable to feel his own legs, entirely dependent on people he has spent years betraying and mistreating. Expect that psychological collapse to deepen before it improves. Expect him to lash out again, not only at Manon, but potentially at his own parents, at doctors, at anyone within reach. Because men like Grisho do not process helplessness quietly. They process it by trying to tear down whatever is closest to them first. Here is where everything in this episode collides at once. Hunan, now conscious and furious, is going to accelerate his hunt for whoever orchestrated the attempt on his life, and that hunt is going to intersect directly with Erna and the uncle she mentioned. Manon and Grisho's marriage is heading toward a breaking point neither of them can walk back from easily, forcing Manon into a decision the entire family is going to have strong opinions about, and Avo's disturbing double life, praying for Hunan's death one moment and smiling at family dinner the next, is finally going to be witnessed by someone who cannot look away or pretend they didn't see it. But here's the twist that changes everything you think you understand about this episode. The man who called Ina is not simply someone connected to Raphael's death from the outside. In the coming episode, expect him to reveal that he has been in direct contact with someone inside this family for years, feeding information, tracking movements, watching every single crisis unfold from a safe distance, and that the assassination attempt against Hunan was not a single isolated act of revenge. It was the final step in a plan that started the night Raphael died 15 years ago. Ina is not just protecting an old secret anymore. She is sitting on the identity of someone who has been quietly dismantling this family piece by piece for over a decade, someone patient enough to wait 15 years for the perfect moment to strike. And just as Hunan stands in that doorway demanding to know who was on the phone, just as Ina opens her mouth to finally speak the name she has buried for 15 years, the lights in that hospital room are going to flicker once, then go completely dark. And somewhere down that same hallway, an alarm is going to start screaming. The alarm isn't coming from Hunan's room, it's coming from Grisho's ward 3 floors down, and the first person to reach his door is going to find his bed empty, the IV line still swinging, and no sign of the nurse who was supposed to be watching him all night. Quick thing before we keep going, drop your city in the comments if you haven't yet. I read every single one. Let's see how far tonight's episode reaches. Back in Hunan's room, the power cutting out for those few seconds is going to be enough for Ina to lose her nerve completely. In the dark, with Hunan's voice demanding an answer she spent 15 years avoiding, she is going to do something nobody expects. She's going to lie to her own son for the first time in this entire story. Not a small lie, not a deflection, a direct, deliberate lie about who was on that phone, buying herself time she doesn't actually have, because in that instant she realizes the man on the line just told her something far more urgent than a name. He told her someone inside the hospital right now is finishing what the first attempt on Hunan's life failed to do, and that whoever it is, they moved the second the lights went out. When the power comes back, Hunan is going to see it on his mother's face immediately that she's hiding something, and for the first time in his life, he's going to look at Ina the way he's looked at every enemy he's ever crushed, with total cold suspicion. That moment, a son questioning the one person in this family he's never once doubted, is going to be one of the most quietly devastating scenes this story has given us, because Hunan built his entire empire trusting almost no one, and Ina was always the single exception. Meanwhile, 3 floors down, the search for Grisho is going to expose exactly how fragile this family's control over the situation actually is. Manon is going to be the first person notified, and her reaction is not going to be panic, it's going to be something colder, something closer to resignation, because some part of her, after everything he's already put her through this episode, is going to wonder for one terrible second whether he left on his own, whether a man convinced his wife destroyed their child, decided he'd rather disappear than face another conversation with her. That thought is going to shame her the moment it crosses her mind, and it's going to send her running through those hallways faster than anyone else in the building. They're going to find Grisho eventually, and not where anyone expects him. He's going to be down in the hospital chapel, alone, having pulled himself out of that bed by sheer force of will, despite legs that don't work, dragging his own body across the floor because some instinct told him the moment the lights went out that something was wrong, and the last place anyone would think to look for a man like him is on his knees in front of an altar he's never once believed in. When Manon finds him there, what he says to her is going to undo every accusation he threw at her earlier in this episode, and it's going to be the first real crack in his defenses since the accident, the first moment he stops blaming her and starts telling her the truth about how terrified he actually is. But the real gut punch is still coming, because while the family is distracted searching for Grisho,
The man Ina lied about, the one connected to Raphael's death and now confirmed to have someone working inside this very hospital, is going to make his next move exactly where nobody is watching. And by the time anyone in that family realizes what's missing, it's going to be far too late to stop it.